So the real story is that when I was a little kid, I read the old Sefer HaTorah, and I was really I knew the old Sefer HaTorah, and the Sefer HaTorah starts from the Alter Rebbe, goes all the Rabbein, and goes till the Frierdiker Rebbe, and then the Frierdiker Rebbe. What is the last chapter in Chelik Daled? The Istalkos from the Frierdiker Rebbe. And in the Istalkos, what was the chapter about the Istalkos? It's actually a letter that a Bocher wrote from America to Israel. This Bocher's name was Dubinsky. It's Moshe Dubinsky's son. Model Dubinsky, he wrote the letter. So Chaner Lichtenstein took that letter, and he printed it. And when I read the letter, I saw it's missing a lot of important pieces. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound that there's enough information on what really happened there.
You're saying
just from reading the letter as being a writer, I felt that there's a lot of holes in that letter, meaning that you don't see the Rebbe's presence in the letter, in the funeral, in the whole Olech in 770 there. So I knew that something is missing here. I mean, he wrote just his personal perspective, what he felt needed to write to his father. He didn't think about. Anyway, so later on, when I worked on a Sichas Kodesh, if you know that me and Gershon Eichern as Bochem in Tovshim Yemei, this was one of my projects in Tovshim Yemei, that as a Bochem 770, that we were looking for the Rebbe Sichas, and we couldn't find in 770. You couldn't find the Rebbe Sichas, and finally, when there was in the library sitting the Rebbe Sichas, I saw there is only it was like 20 or something books of all the sichas from the Rebbe from Tavshin Yud till
so the Hanachas were coming out, but no one bothered to compile them into the proper svarim.
No. The Hanachas from the mems, they came out organized, but the Hanachas from the previous years, they were missing because there was no real organization like it was in the mems. So Bochim would write Hanachas, or they didn't write Hanachas. There was the Menichim, sometimes they wrote, and sometimes they were Anocha Protis. Anocha Protis means that nobody really made
You're talking like in the Chavs.
In the Chavs and in the Lamets. Until Lamed Vov, something like that, there was no real good Anochas. So a lot of the Anochas were like just Anocha Protis, so there was not published to everyone. So only Tuli Bochim had it, and it was in the Rebbe's library, and that's it. So nobody, if a Bocher like me wanted to read the Rebbe Sichas, so there was only the 21, 23 volumes, and that's it. And every of the books was missing, like 10 Fabrengas was missing, 20 Fabrengas was missing from this year, from that year. So we wanted for ourselves to collect, we thought just for ourselves to make for a few Bochem. So we bought a copy machine, and we asked Rabbi Krinsky's son, the Shliach in, Levi Krinsky, asked him if his father could give us permission, if his father could permission to have a room in 770. He gave us a room in 788, and we started to copy the sichas. And then we started to research, and we saw, oh my God, there is so much more. We didn't realize. Anyway, it took us a few years to do it, and we made 50 volumes out of from the 23. We researched, we found all the Fabrengas. We have 50 Bochim work for us. One Bocher was typing, Rabbi Vogel was working for us, Bocher typing the Rebbe Sichas from tape, and then printing them, and then binding them. It's a whole story. And we had to go to Anash in Chanites. We promised Anash that we make a set. If they give $1,000 for us, we will give them a set. And like Moshe Rabbi Schaefer was one of the first people that I went to, and he agreed. And he gave us $1,000, and then Rabbi Zalman Goraye gave us more than $1,000 for the project, and we didn't believe. We were young kid. We had no idea how long it will take. It took us anyway. So when I did the Sichas Kodesh, when I worked on Tavshin Yud, someone told me that Rabbi Eli Gross has a Yuman. So I went to him, and that started my relationship with Eli Gross and with the Yuman of Tavshin Yud. And I took some sichas that he wrote that were not in the Sichas Kodesh, and I put them in as Anocha Protis into the Sefer. But because of that, I started to read the Yuman, and I realized there is such a rich information of what was going on in Tavshin Yud. So the idea already started from Tavshin Yemei, that we have to make a book about it. But I never really took it seriously. But then finally, after my wedding, I decided I'll do this as a project, because And I put some pieces of Tov Shin Yud in some of my tshuras that I made for Chav Chassidim in the years of Mem Vov, Mem Zayin, Mem Ches. And I also did, I printed in Kfar Chabad magazine some of the beautiful stories from Tov Shin Yud, translated from Eli Gosses Yaman. So I got kind of involved in that as a bocher.
So you were doing this mitam yourself, the book?
Yeah, of course.
Like
Yes.
to Kahas, what you wanted to do?
No. I started to work on the book, and then I went to Rabbi Kinsky, and I spoke to him about this. Rabbi Kinsky said, I knew it's a very sensitive issue. Rabbi Kinsky said, I can't promise anything. You made the book. If the book is ready, we'll give it to the Rebbe, and then we'll see. But he couldn't promise me. First, I went to Rabbi to the other people in Kehos. They all sent me to Krinsky. And I went to Krinsky. Krinsky said, I can't promise. And the book is ready. If you're willing to do it. So I raised money for the book, and I
was going to say, no one paid you to do this.
No, of course not. I raised money to make the book, but I felt there is a need for it. And then you know the whole story, how I took also Rabbi Lezer Kokowski to the Shliach in New Jersey to help me. He was a young bacher then. I needed help with collecting items and so on. But the old book I wrote myself, and I was sitting on every word, Shiva Nekim, as we say, to make sure, because I knew it's a very sensitive issue. So every word was...
Because you felt that the story should be told, but doesn't mean that we have to publish things that are not negaya for Chassidim.
Right. Things were not, and it turned out to be that when I made the book, after the book was published, a lot of people told me, "Why didn't you come to me to interview me?" But the truth is, when I tried, they didn't want to.
Right.
So a lot of people they didn't want to be interviewed. And I took most of the things that I took was not from interviews. I mean, Zalman Gurari gave me an interview. What was interesting with Rabbi Gurari, when he gave me the interview, he said to me, I will tell you, why am I even talking to you? And he said that once he remembers, in a Yechidus in Tov Shin Yud, the Rebbe told him that there has to be you have to make a sefer about this time. The Rebbe told him that. And he totally was not understanding it. Yeah. Totally didn't. He didn't understand what did that mean. Who should make a sefer? Why to make a sefer? And it was forgotten. And when I came to him, he said to me, it came back to him how the Rebbe said.
You pasha mechavim to the Rebbe's
Rasim. I didn't. I had no idea. It's not like I.
That's what they call it mechavim.
So I had no idea. So that's why he said. That's why I'm talking to you. He told me a lot of things that I couldn't even put in the book, very special things. But he was, but he gave me a lot of information, and then David Raskin gave me a little bit of information, and Rabbi Mentley gave me a little bit of information.
But it's mainly from the letters from Yale and from
mainly from letters and from Yaman, mainly from the letters, and also Rabbi Mentley gave me information for the Tshuras. He already passed away, Memches, but for the Tshuras, he gave me information. And some of the Tshuras, I reused them for later, for the book. And then also, Baruch Thaler, who passed away lately, his mother had a recording from Leibel Groner when she was a youngster in Vesrivke, and Leibel Groner gave all...
Probably Machachana.
Machachana Vesrivke, and Leibel Groner gave the whole history of Tov Shin Yud when he was still young. It was in the Chavs and the Lamed, I think the Lameds. And it was very, very interesting. It was like all 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I took it down. I wrote it as if it's an interview, but it was really a recording from him. And so, and a few things that he said, a few special things came out later, documents that actually supported that, but the Rebbe himself wrote. And anyway, so later, the last 30 years, huge material came out, new material that I did not see. But all the material that came out is only supporting the line that I took in my book the way I did it.
What's the line?
That right from the beginning, literally from the first few weeks, the entire majority of Anash around the world was already glued to the Rebbe.
So
that is the truth.
We don't need to get into the whole thing, but basically, everyone knows that there was a shaila. So I think historians or whatever people that tried to, they want to say it wasn't so simple. There was this camp and there was that camp. And I mean, I read the book, obviously, but I also gefragt by a lot of people myself. I mean, it's a klare Zach. There was no movement. The only movement, a real movement, maybe there was a Yechidim, a Derher, but the only movement that existed, probably from day one, you think a few weeks, I'll say from day one, is that the Rebbe, it's clear that the Rebbe is Rebbe.
For sure from day one. For two examples, one example I wrote in my book, but the one example Meir Alik just told lately, was a very interesting example. By the Polish Chassidim, there is a custom that at the funeral, after the they make an announcement who is the new Rebbe. By Chabad, there was not such a custom. Chabad usually took a year or more. But the concept, the Rebbe always says, the Bo HaShemesh v'Zoach HaShemesh. The second, the Istalkos.
Like the Rebbe explains about Beis Nissen. The Rebbe...
Right. So
the Beis Nissen is the yard site, whatever the Stalkos, the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe always explains it as the Rebbe's book, that Beis Nissen is Haschals HaNasiyas. So
the same thing happened by the Rebbe. A few examples I have in the book and a few examples I read later. One example that is, for example, that Reb Zalman Goy told me that Shabbos by day, the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away in the morning, Shabbos morning. 2 hours later, the Rashag was holding the Rebbe's hand and walking with the Rebbe, crying and saying to the Rebbe, what's going to be? What's going to be? What's going to be? And the Rebbe calmed them down. And they were going back and forth in the hallway in the Frierdiker Rebbe's house. And the Rebbe calmed down, everything will be okay, everything will be okay, we'll continue. And another story that happened, that's in the book also, that there was a wonderful manash who was supposed to have a L'chaim party. He became a host of the L'chaim party. Motzei Shabbos, Yud Shvat Tov Shin Yud. And he didn't know what to do. What should he do? The Frierdiker Rebbe just passed away. So he ran to 770 and he saw Reb Shmuel Levittin. He was the authority. So he went to Reb Shmuel Levittin and said, what to do? Shmuel Levittin said to him, go to the Ramash, go to the Rebbe. So right from the beginning, the Rebbe made the decisions. And the most interesting story that happened by the Levai that came out, so one is in the book, that when they took the Frierdiker Rebbe down, the Rebbe said loud that we're making a t'nai, we're making a condition, that we are putting you here only in t'nai, that if we will go to Israel, then we will take you with us. That's one thing that he saw, that the Rebbe led everything. And the second thing that Meir Alik told the story lately, that I never knew before, that there is a custom that you put the sand of Eretz Yisrael in the casket and in the grave. So B'shas they wanted to put the sand, the Rebbe said that the Frierdiker Rebbe does not need Israel sand. And someone of the family started screaming, no, we should put, was woo. And the Rebbe said, if my husband said we don't need, so I'm with my husband. And why the Rebbe, and they didn't put. So the Rebbe led the Nesias from Rebbe right from the first second. And why they didn't put, why the Rebbe didn't want to put, because the Rebbe said in a Sicha, the famous Sicha in Tov Shin Yudalad, Yud Shvat, and the Rebbe explains what's the difference between an oil, what's the mile of going to the oil. The Rebbe says that in Eretz Yisrael, because there was the Churban there, so the etzem is not begilui there. There is the etzem of Elokus is there, but it's not the essence of Elokus is there, but it's not begilui. There's the Churban, and where the Churban was, that was give the mashal, the parable, when there is a wall, a big wall, and falls down, so the stone on top of the wall falls the lowest. So in Eretz Yisrael there's no gilui.
Falls the farthest.
Falls the farthest. So therefore, the Eretz Yisrael there's no gilui.
But the Rabbeim,
because like the Rashbi, it says by no chum. So by the Rabbeim, that's the place where the etzem is begilus. So therefore, the Frierdiker Rebbe does not need the offer. It doesn't need the sand from Israel, but that's where the golus is. But the Elokus is not begilui. Whereas the Elokus begilui dafke by the Eir, so that he doesn't need the sand from Eretz. But you could see that the Rebbe led from the first second. That his Nesias, the Rebbe was the Nasi, and his decisions were made, that was absolute. And not only that, especially within days, I mean, like Rabbi Dubov, that's in the book, Rabbi Dubov is the one, Rabbi Dubov from Manchester, he's the one who asked the Rebbe the day after the Istalkas, or the day of the Istalkas, he asked the Rebbe to take over the Nesias. And the Rebbe said to him, what do you think? The Rebbe said his name, Mem Shin is a Rebbe. And then a week, when he went back to England, and he went to Rebbe Shem Tov's house, and he had a meeting with him, and he sent a telegram to the Rebbe to send a series, and the Rebbe wrote back, the Rebbe wrote to Ben Shem Tov, I'm sure that you heard what I told Rav Dubov when he was here about this. But anyway, all the information that came out, you could see clearly that my line was true.